It is 7 p.m. on Tuesday, July 1st, 2025. I call the city council meeting to order. Clerk Everett, please call the roll.
Council Representative Huckabee,
Here.
Council Representative Johnson,
Here.
Council Representative Lesko Hair,
Here.
Council Representative Schultz,
Here.
President Jekyll.
Here. Thank you. Item 3, public hearings tonight, we have none. Item 4, public comment. The city council will receive comments from the city residents. Comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per individual. Anyone wishing to speak is required to sign up in advance or state the following items for the record when called upon: name, address, subject matter, and contact information. No action will be taken on any public comment unless the item is also listed elsewhere on the agenda. Note for those following along on Zoom, if you wish to speak, please raise your virtual hand through Zoom as the chat box is not monitored during the meeting, and those on the call must remain muted unless recognized to speak. Starting from the list tonight, we will start with Robert Bell.
Hello, I'm Robert Bell, N1729 South Main Street, Fort Atkinson. Several properties in Fort Atkinson, to answer your question a month ago. And including an office building, and I've done business in Fort Atkinson for about 53 years. Actually 55 years. But I want to speak to this item 7A, the change of the second reading of the ordinance. Last week, an argument was made against passing that on. And I found it much like the arguments that we've seen across America about freedom of religion. Instead, the argument's made to freedom from religion. We no longer say things in school. We used to have in homerooms when I was growing up, a quiet minute or two where we could pray if we wanted to. And I found that very helpful when I had an extremely difficult math test coming up. But that's all been banned now. And I heard the same arguments that freedom from religion that I heard last week, and freedom from speech instead of freedom of speech. And that's disappointing. I don't know how. I never could understand Mrs. Obama, who couldn't or was never proud of America until her husband became the president. And now it seems like from her website that she's she's not proud of America. She doesn't want to say, I pledge allegiance to America. I pledge loyalty to America. I've never had any trouble with that. And I encourage the city council to pass that on to the second and third reading and to make that part of the formal proceedings of the council meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Christopher Miner.
Hello there. I've never done this before. My name is Christopher Miner. I am on 525 Jackson Street in Fort. I'm a proud American, so I totally get what you're saying there. But it's because I'm a proud American. The country's built on freedom, and what I want to do is keep it free. So this is, I think, Article 7A on the pledge. Mm-hmm. And so I want the freedom thing to be really sticking. Mandating the pledge, though, to mandate it is a form of control. It will be a ritual compliance, but not something like acting from a free conscience. I think the pledge is a great tool or a great show of affection for the country and for the people, especially for the vets. But it should be something that should be freely chosen and not mandated to happen. I keep thinking about why this would be mandated at the city council here, and I can't think of why it should be something that should be made to happen. It's not an official business kind of thing. The negative impact, there can be positive impacts for people to then show their patriotism, but the negative impact is that it may actually alienate people because they're not able to exercise their freedom of will, which this is what our country is about. Also, when I was looking online at this type of stuff, I actually saw that to require the Pledge of Allegiance, and when I was growing up, I had to say it too in my homeroom, but I actually found it's actually unconstitutional. This has probably already been brought up, but to compel someone to say the Pledge of Allegiance. In 1943, the Supreme Court ruled that to require it violates the First and 14th Amendments. And so what I would advise is don't require it. Make it an optional thing, like it should be in terms of love for one's country. One should not be made to love one's country. One should have the freedom to do so. That is what we're about. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Callan.
My name is John Callan. I live at 522 Robert Street here in Fort. I see that the agenda for this evening's meeting shows that the proposed ordinance to amend Section 2-53 of the Code of General Ordinances is to receive its second reading. Yet in the minutes of the council meeting of June 17th, I read that the ordinance may receive its, quote, possible third final reading tonight, though neither agenda states what the ordinance specifies, so I will not either. In any case, it seems to me that you're pretty much of a hurry to get this thing done and over with. I've already stated my views on this measure at the meeting of the Ordinance Committee on June 5th, so I'll just add a few more comments and a question or two. The three members of the Ordinance Committee, one of whom moved that the committee put the ordinance before the council, another of whom seconded that motion, and all three of whom voted in favor of doing so, also constitute a majority of the city council. I think it fair to say that the second and third readings of the ordinance are therefore a matter of formality, and that the result of a vote by the full council is a foregone conclusion. I know this is how politics can work, often does work. Nonetheless, I think that's worth pointing out. Mr. Johnson, you said at the ordinance meeting, in regard to the need to pass the ordinance, quote, the more important question is, why not? End quote. I think the answer to that is that why not is an insufficient reason to pass any legislation. I look at laws and ordinances as attempts to solve existing problems. What is the problem to which this ordinance is a solution? Someone at the Ordinance Committee meeting commented that passing the ordinance would, quote, remove an injustice, end quote. I asked the three members of the council who have moved this measure forward so quickly, exactly what aspect of justice is not being served by the City of Fort Atkinson Code of General Ordinances as it currently reads. Finally, another person at the Ordinance Committee meeting commented that passing the ordinance would bring people closer together. Do you believe that? Do you believe it will bring people closer together? Aside from those who are already in favor of it, which people and how? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Mr. House.
John House, 104 Jefferson Street in FA Town. Couple things that I have. I've been going after the invasive species on the wetlands and in the subdivision. 30 years ago, I got into this program. The Daily Union actually did an article on it for me, thanks to Dick Waney. Of course, all you old folks know him. I gave you all a packet of what the USDA has suggested as far as getting rid of that stuff. I've been in touch with one of the gentlemen that actually helped me start my program out at the farm. He says they actually can take a drone and kill the stuff, and then you mow it, and then when it comes up again, and you hit it again. Very simple. He says $100 an acre, which is pretty cheap. So can we make a proclamation here that June is invasive species month, like the USDA said in that packet, and I got in an email. So, I mean, if we say that peonies are a good thing, let's go after the weeds. Then I guess I'd like to just make a comment about the Pledge of Allegiance. Not sure if I heard correctly last meeting, but I thought I heard that the Pledge of Allegiance could be said anytime. And then there was another comment that we would never stop you from saying the pledge. And I remember standing up here and being told that I couldn't continue as I was trying to honor some dead soldiers in our state. So anyways, I'm for the pledge. I think it's a great tool. And like that young gentleman from the high school said, that just brought him into the fold of the United States. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Kaplan.
I'm Bill Campham. I live at 18 South Water Street West. And that's about all I need to say right now. And I'm here on the issue of the Pledge of Allegiance, which when I first heard it was being proposed, I filed it temporarily under innocuous things, which happen in your life but I woke up that night and I was mad. I was mad because somebody was requiring me, and I'm wondering what the penalty will be if any of you refuse to say a Pledge of Allegiance. You've already made a pledge to serve on the city council. So, and I did that a couple of times myself. And I would never ask it. We all know each other in this community. Well, not everybody, but and so it's interesting. I know Bob, I know John, and I went to some of the meetings. When I woke up and was mad, it was that I said, what this really is about is Bill Camplin's being called less patriotic than other people. And that got under my skin because I've been here 78 years in this country. And I can't tell you how much I think democracy is so important. And making people, putting words in people, making them make pledges constantly, questions their fealty to this country. So I was mad. I'm not so mad anymore because life will go on without me. And so will this council. But I would like to enter into this something I read from retired 4-star General Stanley McChrystal. And I'm just going to quote him. I wrote it down verbatim. For most of my life, I believed in God. I am now less sure than I once was, but the habit of accepting the concept I was taught as a child is strong enough that I reflexively accept the idea of a deity. I think it's very important to have doubts. Faith scares me a bit because one definition of faith is to believe in something you can't prove. The problem is there are a whole bunch of things that I can't prove because they're not true. And so I think faith is comforting in some ways. That's why I almost envy people who have this complete faith. But I actually think it is more important to question everything. It's more important to search ourselves, to search our values, to search what we hear, to doubt the things that are put in front of us. Only when we pressure test them do I think we come out with an accurate appraisal of whether it is right for us. And I stand with Mr. McChrystal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Frigo.
Dave Frigo, 409 Milo Street. Taxpayer and voter. I would like to see the pledge brought back into the meetings. I understand some people might feel triggered, thinking they have to stand up and say it. They don't. You could just sit there. I know people who when they do say the pledge, they don't include the words under God. And, you know, that's up to them. They do have that freedom. So I just think telling people they can't say the pledge is kind of a mandate against them. So thank you.
Thank you. Last person signed up tonight is Miss Wolgamuth.
My address is 307 East Milwaukee Avenue. My name is Lori Welgemuth. First of all, I would like to thank you, thank you. I first would like to say I'm not here to speak bad of anyone, only of the policies of which I disagree. As we all have our gifts and downfalls, I will be speaking on the pledge. A few years back, we were made to wear masks. Schools closed down. Some businesses even lost everything they had. No church services, landlords were not paid, forced vaccines, and on and on. At my job, working with the elderly, they had no visitors, and they could not leave their rooms. Many left this world at home, assisted living, or in the hospital, with no one, including their own children and their lifelong partner, not even allowed to be with them on their deathbed. I had to drive with a piece of paper in my car stating that I was an essential worker, so that if the health department of Jefferson County decided to restrict us from leaving our home by law, I would be able to drive to work. How fast we forget. We do not know when the pledge was omitted from these meetings, but I do know that we now have the chance to change it to its proper place in our city meetings. I, for one, do not want to lose our rights to say the pledge because of others that claim to be patriotic but refuse to say the pledge. If you do not want to say it, that is your right in the United States of America. But don't tell me and anyone else that we shouldn't or cannot. If we let these citizens vote this down, what's next? This is what our forefathers based our country on. And if you don't, it's a big world. Maybe you're living in the wrong country. Remember, this is God's country, and that is why it is so great. I feel this is a tug of war to take more of our honorable rights away by trying to make us ashamed of what is good and right. We need to stand for our United States flag and what it stands for in this city. Who would ever thought that we would have to stand up and fight for our grand old flag in our own country? But we will. Thank you.
Thank you. This will be a first call for Zoom. Anyone signed up on or attending on Zoom? Second call for anyone attending on Zoom. Public comment is now closed. Moving on to item 5, consent agenda. The consent agenda outlined below is hereby presented for action by the City Council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda on the request of any one council member. Items not removed may be adopted by one action without debate. Removed items may be taken up either immediately after the consent agenda or placed later on the agenda at the discretion of the council president.
I move to approve the consent agenda as listed, items 5A through 5C.
Second.
With a motion and a second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, petitions, requests, and communications. Item 6A is review and possible action on relating to a proclamation recognizing July as Parks and Recreation Month in the city of Fort Atkinson. Manager Hausman.
Thank you. Since 1985, people in the United States have celebrated Park and Recreation Month in July to promote building strong, vibrant, and resilient communities through the power of parks and recreation, and to recognize the more than 160,000 full-time park and recreation professionals, along with hundreds of thousands of part-time and seasonal workers and volunteers that maintain our country's local, state, and community parks. The services that park and recreation professionals provide are vital for our communities, from protecting open space and natural resources to helping fight obesity and providing activities and resources for all people. The success of all of the programming that's outlined in the memo and very well shown on our website, that success in the city is thanks to the dedicated full-time staff of the Parks and Recreation Department, including Director Ben Dayton, Brett Ketterman, Chris Nye, Nash Christian, JJ Yankee, Rick Allard, Josh Crandall, Jim Wittucky, and Matt Thompson, along with countless part-time and seasonal employees, many of whom were employed today, I'm sure, as the pool was open, and probably had a lot of folks, as well as our seasonal, all of our seasonal folks who water our flowers downtown, et cetera. So we're very appreciative of them. Approving this proclamation is not expected to have a financial impact, and staff does recommend that the council approve the proclamation to recognize the month of July as Parks and Recreation Month, to raise awareness about the great programming available in the city and appreciation of our Parks and Recreation Department staff.
I move to approve the proclamation recognizing July as Parks and Recreation Month in the city of Fort Atkinson.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further comments and debate? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Got approved.
You are correct. Oh, nice.
Moving on to item 6B, is a presentation relating to the City of Fort Atkinson's lead service line replacement program. Public Works Director Naven.
Good evening. So tonight I'm going to give you an update on the lead lateral service replacement program that was first brought out to the attention last fall with letters that went out. Next, out to our residents. So November 8th, 2024, residential property owners were mailed a letter that provided information on their water service laterals, why the city was creating an inventory, the impact lead can have on public health, further information on testing for lead and reducing exposure. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the federal lead and copper rule revisions went into effect in 2021. And under this, all public water systems in Wisconsin must submit an initial service line materials inventory to the Department of Natural Resources by October 16th of 2024, which we did complete last fall. And October 8th, 2024, the EPA issued a final rule requiring drinking water systems across the country to identify and replace lead pipes within 10 years. The lead copper rule improvement also requires more rigorous testing of drinking water and a lower threshold requiring communities to take action to protect people from lead exposure in the water. In addition, the final rule improves communication with communities so that families are better informed about the risk of lead in drinking water, the location of lead pipes, and plans for replacing them. We're going to cover all that here, what that means for us. So why replace lead service lines? Health effects. Exposure to lead in drinking water can cause serious health effects in all age groups. Infants and children can have decreases in IQ and attention span. Lead exposure can lead to new learning and behavior problems or exacerbate existing learning and behavior problems. Children of women who are exposed to lead before or during pregnancy can have increased risk of these adverse health effects. Adults can have increased risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, kidney or nervous system problems. There is no safe level. The EPA and CDC agree that there is no safe level of lead in drinking water. So what are service lines? As you can see here, the red line on that's shown, that is the private side of a service line. And then the blue is the public side of a service line, and the piece there in the middle, the curb stop, that is right at the right-of-way property boundary, typically right behind the sidewalk or right wherever the right-of-way is in your street. And that's where it goes, that transition happens from the public's line to the private line. And this is the, what's gonna feed the water service to your home. So service line materials used here, you can see the different materials that have been used over the years. The top one, lead, is a dull silver gray color that's easily scratched with a coin. You can use a magnet that and it will not cling to a lead pipe versus a galvanized pipe, which is dull silver gray in color, and you can use a magnet and it will typically cling right to that pipe. Copper pipe, which I think is a lot of us are more familiar with, and the plastic rigid pipe as well that you might see throughout your home. So step one in the process of inventorying all the service lines in the city is identifying these locations and reviewing records. We have these tap cards over at the water utility. It's a Rolodex that's about the size of a chest freezer that has all kinds of good history on them. Unfortunately, it doesn't have every residential property that has ever gone in, or any property for that matter that's gone in. So there is a need to continuously review this. So after we went through the Rolodex, the staff started visual inventory, going out to the curb stop. If there is a spot where they can actually see both sides of the curb stop to identify the public and private side of that. They also identify this when they go into homes to do meter exchanges, and they can go right in there and they can see what the lead or what the line is inside. And then with that letter that went out on November 8th last year to residents, we asked that they help us out with this identification. And if the letter they received said that it was unknown what their lateral was, we asked them to help us out and give us a call and send us a picture of what it is. We can help them identify that. So we broke the city up into 5 work zones, and here you can see the percentage of identified service laterals complete. We're working our way through the city. And zone 1, 2, 3, and the upper portions of 4 and 5 are more of the original older parts of the city. And as you get down into 4 and 5 on the south end, you see some older parts of the city where we don't hope to see as much as much lead or problem pipes. So step 2 is logging these lead service laterals. So then here you can see the different colors on the map. Green equals good, which is a copper. Gray is unknown. Light blue is a ductile iron. Orange is galvanized. Purple is plastic, and red equals lead. And these are all accessible on the city website now for anybody that does have interest in learning about their lateral. So as you can see here, the private side, so population of Fort Atkinson, 12,500 direct customers. The private side services is 4,634. To date, we have identified 61 lead services, and we have 500 unknown services yet that we need to inspect. And then on the public side, we have 307 lead services that have been identified and 138 yet to inspect. So to give you an idea, for both of those, we're talking 2 to 3% of the city's laterals as a whole to date. So step 3, identifying the funding opportunities. In 2017, the Joint Finance Committee unanimously voted to allow public water utilities and municipalities to provide financial assistance to property owners to complete this work. Other funding options include, but are not limited to, the bipartisan infrastructure law funded lead service line replacement program, the CDBG revolving loan fund program, and the USDA single family housing repair loans and grants. So at this time, city staff are meeting with Wisconsin DNR next week to discuss funding opportunities and the best way forward. Best way to put it is there's a lot of different opportunities. So to sit down with DNR staff and really understand what the best option for us is to move forward is what we're going for here next. Step 4, design of the lead service lateral replacement plan. Complete the Wisconsin DNR approved replacement plan, which includes a lead service replacement ordinance. pursue grant funding and prepare contract documents for a publicly bid project. The project will include the replacement of private lead service from the curb stop to inside the residence, as well as the replacement of public water services, including roadway patching, curb and gutter repair, terrace repair, etc. And during step 4, this is when we would look to get a consultant involved to help us manage this program as we implement it citywide. Step 5, initiating construction to remove 100% of lead laterals. Funding for this project is expected to be from both grant funds and revenue bonds. Typically, the grant funding is used for the construction and replacement of private water service laterals. And step 6, ongoing coordination with utility staff and residents. Even with best efforts in identifying existing lead service laterals, there'll always be the possibility that unknown lead services could remain. There might be a chunk of it that was hidden and not exposed during the process. So the water utility is committed to removing 100% of unknown lead services from the city's water system. Staff will continue to monitor and log the services at each meter changeout and notify myself and city staff when any lead services are identified. So we talked about the communication plan there to start off. We do have a webpage on the city website that talks all about the lead service information, all the rulings that have come down and the impacts of them. The letters went out to property owners stating the status of their service laterals. They went out again last Friday. That was a no action necessary letter. If you received it or anybody asked you about it, it was a requirement that until we have these replaced, we send out this letter annually with an update on where everything is at to residents. So we will also be utilizing the city's social media outlets to get this communication out as much as we can, as well as when the time comes for construction, hosting public information meetings. Timelines. So here you can see the lead and copper rule improvements timeline. They state that by 2027, you have to have all your laterals inventoried, and then within 10 years have them replaced. And they kind of have you can't wait till the last minute. You've got to keep up with a certain percentage. But you will see here the city of Fort Atkinson's timeline is to have all of our inventory completed by the end of 2025, work with the DNR and approved replacement plan. In the end of 25 and through 26, submit the inventory and replacement plan and work with the DNR to get the replacement plan up and running and get funding secured. And by 27, begin replacements. And by 2030, have them done. We'll aim to get way ahead of that one and take care of this problem. So next steps, complete and update the lead service lateral inventories, establish the lead service replacement plan, which requires creating an ordinance to private lead lateral replacement. So we'll expect to see me back in here by the end of the summer with that ordinance. Identifying opportunities, funding opportunities, and prepare the applications. Engage with residents and property owners. Coordinate with DNR and other agencies for compliance and support. And finalize that plan and get construction rolling. Any questions?
As this proceeds and it's the city's responsibility for that's what's out on the street, but from the street hub to the house, it'll be the landowner's financial responsibility.
Depending on the funding options, there are opportunities out there for some grant funding that we can hopefully help out with some of that through that process.
Okay, if there's a process where they might be able to find assistance.
Correct.
To cover this.
Correct.
And opting out is not an option.
And no, it is not.
All right. Anything else for him?
I will just mention, if you recall, when Laura Scott, our GIS, shared GIS employee, came and presented to the city council, she actually showed the live updated website that our GIS, we're using our GIS program to update all of the inventories of the lead service, of all the service lines once they've been identified. So it is really easy to go to our website and go to that lead service line web page, and you can use our GIS tool to see exactly what you have. And if you have an unknown, please reach out to the water utility and we will we'll make an appointment and we'll figure out what it is and we'll add you to one of the lists. So that's the plan moving forward. Some folks might be getting red tags, and that is an attempt to contact contact you, just wants, it means that please contact the water utility. We're looking at each zone. We're trying to get one zone done before the next zone. So it's very important if you get a red tag or if you see our water utility folks out, to work with them so they can identify those laterals.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 7, resolutions and ordinances. 7A is second reading of a proposed ordinance amending section 2-53 of the City of Fort Atkinson Code of General Ordinances relating to the order of business for city council meetings. Manager Houseman.
Thank you. The proposed ordinance amendment makes 2 changes to the order of business for city council meetings. The first change is to add the Pledge of Allegiance, and the second change is to codify the use of a consent agenda that the council approved back in 2021. The ordinance committee met on June 5th and recommended that the city council approve this ordinance. And the council performed the first reading of the ordinance on June 17th. Staff does recommend that the council perform the second reading of the ordinance tonight and direct the city manager to prepare it for a third and final reading at the meeting on July 15th.
I will just express one opinion brought up tonight about forcing people to speak this. I will commit that under my time as council president, that this will be an invitation only to recite the pledge. I'm not going to force anyone that does not feel comfortable to stand up here and say it with us. So just as a notice for everyone. I don't want anyone to feel completely uncomfortable by having to say it if they don't want to.
It'd be unconstitutional if you did.
I would like to thank those who came here to participate tonight and offer an opinion. I like the more devil's advocate that we found tonight than we've had in the past. I understand that the idea that I'm going to command anybody to say the Pledge of Allegiance, I have no intentions of doing that. I also have no intentions of being told I can't. It's really the same philosophy that you're looking at, only you're the one bestowing it or we're the ones bestowing it. I think if we offer this as an opportunity to say the pledge or not, it's not a mandate. There's no punishment for it. And I believe there's a large amount of support in the public that they would like this idea. I don't require anybody to do it. I don't think we should have rules that said if you don't say it, here's the penalty that happens to you. You come here to participate in this room, you're more than welcome to be here with one direction or another direction of opinion. But the concept that we can't say it isn't any different than us mandating you say it. And I'm not sure that that's what we're doing. I don't believe we're mandating anybody say it. We're going to have an opportunity to say it. I'm on board with that.
I'll offer some more thoughts. A couple of things. Everyone has the right to say this on their own time. I calculated rough pencil math. You have the opportunity to say the Pledge of Allegiance 124,000 times during the month if you want, outside of the time that the city council is in session. You have the freedom to say it when you want. I'm not going to rehash everything I said 2 weeks ago, but I'll try to summarize my disagreement. So I fully respect the pledge and those who choose to recite it. While I object, what I object to is this local government putting it on the agenda, which pressures others to perform it, especially when those who choose not to will be judged for that decision, even when it may violate their values or religious beliefs. To me, this is not patriotic, nor is it unifying to me. This is compelled speech by proxy, and the key word here is by proxy, because I understand as local government, we can't punish anyone for doing it. But if any of my other fellow council members believe that anyone in the public would ever judge anyone, and we've probably heard enough comments over the past few weeks and things that have been submitted to the city council, that I think you would find that to be the case. My oath was to defend the Constitution of the United States, and I hold firm on not infringing on this, even though it may be a very gray area. As a veteran, 19 years of service, several tours overseas. I hope that I can be an example that you can love this country deeply and take immense pride in being American without treating the Pledge of Allegiance as the ultimate form of how to demonstrate it to others. Furthermore, just a couple of things, the way that I operate, and I think, I've had to go through a 40-hour course on cognitive biases and logical fallacies in my educational journey. In that training, some of those things have come up in this argument. We've heard comments that everyone else says the pledge, we should too. That is called the bandwagon fallacy. Emotional appeals or appeals to pity when people say, look at what's going on in the country, or saying that it honors my relative. There are also appeals to tradition and nostalgia when people say, well, I had to say it all through school. We've also heard straw man arguments. Luckily not today, but in the past meeting that individuals thought that we might be objecting to it because it takes too long. Again, that's a straw man argument. Even online, I've read comments akin to, I can't believe this is even a question. How is this even up for debate? Which is an appeal to incredulity, or also called the dismissive bias. Again, some other falsehoods. I don't know if anyone yet has been able to prove that this is ever on city council. So perpetrating the idea that someone took it off at some point in time is misleading. I'm not raising these points to dismiss anyone's specific views, but recognizing bias and logical fallacies are key in critical thinking. In local government, especially when it involves speech and freedom, we must think critically and carefully. Tradition, emotion, and social pressure should never override principle. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a chance last meeting to express my reasons for opposing adding the pledge to our agenda, and I won't rehash those. But since we are taking the time to amend our meeting ordinance, I'd like to propose an amendment to the amendment. And it follows, I believe, the county board's agenda, establishing 2 public comment periods, one for agenda items at the outset of the meeting, and a second for acceptable topics not on the agenda. And it would help us get to agenda items more efficiently while still maintaining time for residents and property owners to share what's on their mind. It also potentially offers an opportunity for some cost savings during those times where we have paid consultants on hand to give presentations to us. This would allow us to get to those agenda items faster, and reducing the time consultants may be on the clock. So with that, I would move to amend the proposed amendment to provide 2 public comment agenda items. The first would be in the proposed amendment, item 6, public comment for agenda items, and the second would come at an appropriate spot. I don't know if that would be after new business on the agenda. After new business item 11, the second public comment period for non-agenda items.
So just to repeat that, when would the first one be? Where it is now?
Where it's proposed now.
Okay,
For agenda
and
items.
then
A second
toward
one
the
later.
end.
Second one towards the tail end after, if it's appropriate, after new business.
Okay,
I would rely on staff to help me out and where the most appropriate spot in the agenda would be for a second public comment period. And again, that's what I believe the county board follows, two separate public comment agenda items. It was kind of long-winded, but that's my motion.
We have a motion. Can we get a second to discuss this, debate it?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Let's any open for debate.
I'm just gonna re-say what you said, just so I can check my understanding. So the first public comment is for anything to do with the agenda items. And then the second one would be for anything unrelated to what we're currently discussing that night.
Yes, but still within the guidelines of what is allowed at under our ordinance. appropriate public comment. There are several things that are,
Right.
that are inappropriate for that. So that wouldn't change anything there.
I'll throw this out there. We had an example tonight. Mr. House brought up the wetland or invasive species item. That would be a perfect topic for the second portion. If I'm understanding your position right.
Yes, if it's not an agenda item,
Okay.
still provides time for that feedback to be provided.
You're not sure where to place them, whether you would place them, in which order or back to back or separate locations on the agenda?
Right, separate locations. I would leave the first one, which has been suggested, it would be public comment item 6. Item 6 would be public comment on agenda items. And then somewhere in the back half, I'm thinking between 11 and 12, as has been proposed with the amendment, there is public comment for non-agenda items.
What would the limitations on the non-agenda items be?
Same comment, same that we have
That
right
it
now.
would be at the purview of the sitting council president at that time, correct?
Well, in accordance with what is spelled out in the ordinance, as you know, there are certain things that are not prohibited. And it would be the.
Sorry, I thought maybe that.
No, I have those.
So we have like, right, political topics of any nature, issues with individual city staff, or any subject not relevant to the city of Fort Atkinson. And that has been my point in the past, is it is not an open mic for someone to come up and recite their favorite passage. Following our ordinance, that's what it is. So like the Pledge of Allegiance in the past, is it a subject that is relevant to the interest of the city of Fort Atkinson? If it's not, then it's not allowed.
So I happen to be at one of the county board meetings prior to them enacting that rule of having the two separate public comments. And their biggest reasoning for doing it is they had several citizens that would come up and squabble about something, not anything to do with any of the county board proceedings at the beginning, and then walk on out and leave and not stay for any part of the meeting. So I definitely agree and do kind of support this idea. Not that we've had that problem, because most people that do come and comment do tend to stay for the entire meeting here. But I know at that time that was a big problem they were having. And they thought that kind of the same thing. Consultants are being there for reasons, and it doesn't look right on the citizen to come in, squabble, and then just up and leave.
I have mixed feelings about the concept of what we're doing with where you want to take this, only because I think that we don't have the rules for it clearly defined enough to simply say that a sitting individual on this council could say, that's not important to the city. You can't say that. Wow, man, I'm not I'm listening to devil's advocate, lots of speeches about rights and being made to do stuff. I watched this council take Mr. House and pretty much backhand him off that podium. They were not polite, they were not nice, and they were not diplomatic, and they could have been. They could have easily said, let him finish out that day and then say, we won't do more of that because. Now, we pretty much backhanded him off there. And then we told him 2 weeks ago that we'd never stop anybody from saying that. Really? I watched the same person who said that do it.
I'm not sure who said that, but it was not me.
It was on you.
No, I did not say I'm not going to stop somebody from saying that something that is allowed in this meeting. I did not do that.
Well,
So in the past, we had an instance where someone did launch into a Pledge of Allegiance, and we stood and we honored it. And then a second time, when it was tried again, it is the chair's decision on what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. And so at that time, at the time, when it was brought up by other groups that we should add the Pledge of Allegiance to our meetings, to allow someone to then launch into it without it being part of the agenda does not seem right.
Well,
So somebody could stand up and read anything in 3 minutes then.
well, we pretty much got that. I listened to people talk about deer eating their flowers and the special rut that's in front of their house that nobody else has. Maybe read poetry. I'm not opposed to those things. People should be able to express what they think about what's going on in Fort. I, where we're talking about where I was not satisfied with how this council treated Mr. House. Wasn't that I wanted to jump out there and say, let him say that. It was about, we could have done that more diplomatically. We were not nice. And he's a citizen who actually cares. He shows up this council regularly. He speaks in front of us regularly. We don't get enough of that. One of the only things I found disappointing as a councilman is the lack of people showing up here. Tonight was wonderful. I had devil's advocate all around me. I love that. I love that. It helps make the right decision. But I felt for a citizen who cares enough to show up all the time for us to pretty much put our thumb on him and say, get off the stage. I was not pleased with that. I changed my opinion of whether or not I think we should or should not say it at that point. Up until that point, before that, I was council president, and this opportunity appeared before me. And I didn't want to put any of the council members in front of it and say, you're going to stand up in public and say you're not going to be patriotic enough to say that. I wouldn't do that. So I didn't come up for a debate. But I watched how we treated Mr. House and I changed my mind that.
So let me ask them, what would the passage be? What passage would be relevant to the interests of the city of Fort Atkinson? I mean, that's the way the ordinance is written right now, and there's been no suggestion to modify that. The suggestion here was to amend it to include the pledge, to cite that, but there's countless other things somebody could get up and start citing. But how is the Pledge of Allegiance, how is that relevant to the business of the city of Fort Atkinson?
I'm just going to chime in here though and ask, if you wouldn't mind, would you read that section there as to what can or can't be said here and
So-
how it outlays?
We currently have an ordinance that addresses public comment at city council meetings. And it says subject matter of speakers' comments is not limited to agenda items, but prohibited topics include political topics of any nature, issues regarding city or with city staff, any subject not relevant to the interests of the city of Fort Atkinson. And it also says the council president will decide on the appropriateness of any speaker's comments. So I think if I can paraphrase what Councilmember Lesko here made the motion on, he was saying the public comment for matters on the agenda be placed in item number 6, and the public comment for matters not on the agenda would still be subject to these rules, but they would be later on the agenda under item 12.
That's correct.
And that is the motion in the second that's on the floor right now. And so just a quick process item. If the council does want to see that on and performs the second reading of this ordinance and votes to amend this ordinance to include this change, all of that could come back on the 15th for the third reading of the ordinance. Okay. So the matter on the floor right now is a motion and a second and discussion amongst the two, separating those two public comment periods on the agenda.
There's any other discussion on that item?
I
Amendment?
guess I'm just curious on the clarity of having them separated. Is there really a purpose to that? I mean, beyond
I mean,
same people could say the
as-
same things just at different point in time?
It gets to agenda items more quickly, efficiently. There's potential savings, as I said, for paid consultants who are here sitting through what could be like, I don't know, how long did we have tonight? 15, 20 minutes of public comment. There have been times where we've had a little bit more, times where we have none. But there's no controlling that. But what we can control is if they're going to talk about agenda items, appropriate time is up front. And if there's non-agenda items, we'll still get to them. They still have their opportunity to provide comment on non-agenda items, not restricted by the ordinance, later in the agenda.
Will that allow a single individual to come to the podium twice?
If there were non-agenda and agenda items, absolutely.
On that, I'm a little bit more, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not for it. But I'll go with the flow where the council goes with that. I've tried to do that most of my time on council, be a team player with it. On rare occasions do I think different.
Any other comment?
I mean, I'd like a little bit more time to think about this, but I think even if it passes today, 2 weeks is going to be enough time for that. So.
And for clarification, if we needed to, could we pull that amendment at the last meeting or?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
So seeing any more comment? All those in favor of adding the amendment to this reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. So we have the amendment of separating the public comment periods out. Split in here. Going on to the continuing with the second reading of this proposed ordinance of 2-53. Look for a
I
motion.
move to direct the city manager to prepare the ordinance for a third and final reading at the meeting on July 15th, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further debate or discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Moving on to item 7B, second and possible third final reading of the ordinance relating to the zoning map amendment to change the zoning district for a portion of the properties located west of Banker Road and east of Fort Atkinson High School, parcel number 226-0614-3322-000 from single-family residential SR2 to multifamily residential MRM 12 and single-family residential SR5 and conservancy. Building Director of Neighborhood and Building Services, Drager. Change that on me now.
A couple more words there. Yes, thank you. So if you remember from the first reading at the last meeting, this is for the Ridgeview Estates in relation to the Ridgeview Estates subdivision plat. This is the zoning portion of that approval process for those new lots in the Banker Road, what was previously known as a Banker Road subdivision or division area. This is the process that establishes the zoning for those individual parcels that are described on the subdivision plat and is also listed on the subdivision plat. Those are the SR5 single family zoning, MRM 12 for what we have already seen as a multifamily townhome established area, and then also conservation, which is the areas of the subdivision that handle the stormwater for the subdivision. Just the particular subdivision. There was a previous CSM that handles the regional stormwater. This is not part of that. This is the conservation would just be those two other outlots that handle this stuff specific for the subdivision plat that we have seen before and was approved. This is also listed as neighborhood in the city's comprehensive plan. This is following with the Bank Road Development Plan as well. Plan Commission held a public hearing back on June 10th. There was no public comment, And the city staff believes that this is aligned with the city's comprehensive plan. City staff does recommend the city council perform the second reading of the ordinance and suspend the rules and perform the third and final reading of the ordinance and enact the same, changing the zoning classification of the subject property from single-family residential SR2 to multifamily residential MRM12, single-family residential SR5, and conservancy for the approved preliminary plat. And I'll take any questions that you may have.
This has gone over these several times, so glad to see this going through, and actually glad to see a lot of the dirt work beginning out there on the
Yeah, it's
other lots already zoned out.
definitely moving along over there, yeah. And as I said, this preliminary plat does describe each individual's proposed zoning of those three zoning designations that are on this zoning map amendment.
Well, I move to suspend the rules and offer a third and final reading of this ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or concern? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Counselor Huckabee,
Aye.
Counselor Johnson,
Aye.
Counselor Lesko,
Aye.
Counselor Schultz,
Aye.
President Jacob.
Aye, motion carries. We are suspended from the rules, so we could move on to the third reading.
I move to adopt the ordinance relating to a zoning map amendment to change the zoning district for a portion of the properties located west of Banker Road and east of Fort Atkinson High School from single-family residential SR2 to multifamily residential MRM12, single-family residential SR5, and conservancy CON.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7C is a second and possible third final reading of an ordinance relating to a zoning map amendment to change the zoning district for properties located at 1349, 1347, and 1345 Marigold Drive. And parcel numbers are listed. From single-family residential SR2 to single-family residential SR5. Director of Neighborhood and Building Services, Drager.
Thank you. This is literally right across the street from the other parcels that I was just speaking about. This was recommended for approval by the Plan Commission on February 11th. This is also, these three individual parcels are directly related to a CSM that describe these parcels as well as another parcel, multifamily parcel that is proposed and for multifamily townhomes and has a PUD overlay. However, this is specifically for the three remaining parcels of that CSM, establishing them for single family zoning. Once again, this is the zoning portion of this process, establishing the designation for that, which sets the setbacks and bulk density requirements for those, and this proposal is meeting that. Once again, staff believes this is aligned with the comprehensive plan and the Banker Road Development Plan. Once again, the first reading was performed on June 17th by the City Council, and City staff recommends the City Council perform the second reading of the ordinance, suspend the rules, and perform the third and final reading of the ordinance and enact the same, changing the zoning classification of the properties located at 1349, 1347, and 1345 Marigold Drive from single-family residential SR2 to single-family residential SR5. And take any questions you may have.
I just have a comment that everyone should go to the Plan Commission meetings because it's all laid out there too. So by the time you get here, it's awesome because I already know what you're talking about. No. So
Staff puts
I'm,
a lot of time in there to make sure that it's very, very heavy on description.
yeah. I move to suspend the rules and offer a third final reading of this ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions, concern? Seeing none, a roll call vote again.
Counselor Huckabee,
Aye.
Counselor Johnson,
Aye.
Counselor Lesko,
Aye.
Counselor Schultz.
Aye.
President Jacob.
Aye, motion carries. All right, all rules are suspended again.
I move to adopt the ordinance relating to a zoning map amendment to change the zoning district for the properties located at 1349, 1347, and 1345 Marigold Drive from single-family residential SR2 to single-family residential SR5.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 8, reports of officers, boards, and committees. 8A is city manager's report. Manager Hausman.
Thank you. The Fort Atkinson Generals Baseball Fest took place on June 19th through June 22nd. It was an exciting and successful festival, including some unplanned fireworks when the wind blew down a power line. Luckily, it was during the public safety softball game, so our police officers and firefighters were there to take immediate action. Also worth noting, we won the softball game, so congratulations to all on a successful baseball fest this year. Last week, I attended the Wisconsin City County Managers Management Association Summer Conference in Sturgeon Bay. There were great sessions about building resilience, both as an individual and from an organizational culture perspective, strengthening the pipeline for the manager-administrator profession, legal insights, and legislative updates from the League of Wisconsin Municipalities and the Wisconsin Counties Association. So it was well worth my time. The Dwight Foster Public Library's summer reading program is off to a great start. The reading challenges have 954 participants so far, and it's not too late to join. The program for all ages continues through July 31st. The library also recently hosted 1,415 attendees at June programs, including the snake discovery, which my youngest attended and held a boa constrictor, story time with Curious George, art classes, and many others. In July, the library is looking forward to welcoming author Nicholas Butler and poet Nick Gulig visit the library website for more information about upcoming events. We have had a couple staffing updates I'd like to announce. Steve Coots has moved from our Public Works Operations Division to our water utility. Nicole Saxey has started work as the new municipal court clerk and administrative assistant. And our own Jed Drager has been promoted to the position of Director of Neighborhood and Building Services. However, he will retain his responsibilities for building inspection and zoning administration. So in true Fort Atkinson style, we all wear a lot of hats. So congratulations to all. The Jefferson County government, in partnership with Community Action Coalition for South Central Wisconsin, is proud to announce the upcoming launch of the Jefferson County Financial Empowerment Center in late summer, early fall 2025. The program will offer professional, free one-on-one financial counseling to all Jefferson County residents over the age of 18, helping them reduce debt, build credit, increase savings, and work toward long-term financial stability. One of those offices will be at the MATC Fort Atkinson campus, so we will have access to that right here in Fort Atkinson. If you're looking for fireworks in the area, Festival Foods will be hosting a display at the Jefferson County Fairgrounds on July 3rd at dusk. Parking is available at the fairgrounds. And while the municipal building will be closed for the 4th of July holiday, please consider joining our friends at the Horde Historical Museum on July 4th from 1 to 3 p.m. for the annual ice cream social. There will be live music from local band Ad Hoc Trio, games, and of course, gallons of ice cream and toppings. The museum has been hosting this social for 49 years and sees it as their gift to the community on the 4th of July. The City Council will hold a public listening session relating to the use of fluoride in the city's public water system on Monday, July 14th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Dwight Foster Public Library. And there will be a community open house at the new Public Works and Parks Operations facility located at 600 Talcott Avenue on Friday, July 25th from 4 to 6 p.m. All are welcome to tour the new facility and have refreshments. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9, unfinished business. Tonight we have none. Item 10, new business. Review and possible action relating to amendment number 1 to the contract between the City of Fort Atkinson and MSA for the South Main Street Bike Pedestrian Path and Road Rehabilitation Project. Director of Public Works, Naven.
Thank you. The city of Fort Atkinson awarded the design contract for the South Main Street pedestrian path and road improvements project to MSA on February 20th, 2024, as shown in attachment 1. In the spring of 25, staff requested MSA amend the contract to include the cost to hold a public information meeting to present the upcoming project and collect feedback from residents, as well as for MSA to bid the project out as shown in attachment number 2. The formal public information meeting was well attended and public provided feedback on the project that was integrated into the design. Staff asked MSA to bid the project to achieve economies of scale. If the city did not ask MSA to bid the project, the city would have asked the contracted city engineer, Andy Burt from Rupert and Milky, to complete this work. Bidding the project would have been an additional cost regardless of which entity completed the work. There is value in the firm awarded the design contract being a part of the public information meeting to ensure they have an understanding of questions and concerns raised by the citizens. And as can be seen in the attachments, the public information meeting was held on March 4th, was well attended. This project timeline has been extended since the time of the attached proposal and is scheduled to be bid out at the end of August. The project is expected to be constructed in 2026. Financial analysis, the total cost of the work totaled $12,800. Associated fees for this work will be attributed to Fund 5, roadway improvements, and the portion that can be attributed to water, wastewater, and stormwater utilities. And staff recommendation is the city council approve amendment number 1 to the South Main Street pedestrian path and road improvements project with MSA at a cost not to exceed $12,800.
So just be correct, this was for that listening session that was held, what, a month and a half ago? or
March
something?
4th.
March 4th, okay. So this is just all the fees associated with that and
Correct.
for them to gather the information, put back in. Okay.
And
And
as well
for-
as bidding of the project is taking place right now. They're working through that and it'll be bid out in late August.
Okay.
That piece as well.
I move to approve amendment number 1 to the South Main Street pedestrian path and road improvements project with MSA at a cost not to exceed $12,800.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 11, miscellaneous. Tonight we have none. Item 12, claims appropriations and contract payments. 12A is review and possible action relating to the verified claims as presented by the Director of Finance and authorized payment.
I move to approve the verified claims as presented.
Second,
Motion and a second. Any further questions? This is a roll call vote.
Council Huckabee,
aye.
Council Johnson,
Aye.
Council Escobar,
Aye.
Council Schultz,
Aye.
President Jacobs.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 13 is adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.